Welcome to PwC in the Caribbean's ESG Week 2024. My name is Caroline Belgrave and I'm the Regional Net Zero Driver. I'm delighted to be joined by Gerry Mahon, who, while wearing many hats for the purposes of this interview, is our Regional Net Zero Leader. So we are talking today about getting started with ESG data. We at PwC already measure, report and disclose our ESG data, which is kind of all of our ESG metrics. But for the purposes of this interview, with yours and my role focused on environment, we're going to concentrate on net zero data.
Sure.
Okay. So the first question I have for you today, Gerry, is how critical is data in driving the net zero commitment, our net zero commitment?
Sure. Data is absolutely fundamental, Caroline. You need to understand where you are in terms of how much emissions you're making in your business, and then that will then drive your strategic plans, and then it creates a platform for you to track how you're meeting your strategic initiatives. Of course, data is also becoming much more readily available to the market and for the transparency of what you're doing. So,
So on that same theme, can you share some examples of how data has influenced us and some of the sustainability decisions we've made?
Well, identifying and tracking the data actually was a huge challenge for us as we started this journey. As you're well aware, Caroline, you were involved in that process. It took us a long time to develop the systems and the processes to capture the data we needed to understand where we were, set our strategic plans, and then move forward from there. And over time, we've developed things like data analytics tools and better systems and processes of capturing data.
Yeah. And that's all fantastic. And yep, you're right. We have these amazing tools. Not every business will have the same kind of technology. Could you tell me what types of data that would be relevant to other businesses are the most valuable pieces of data to collect? You know, thinking about that getting started.
Yeah. Well, I think, Caroline, it's going to depend on the nature of the industry that you're in, right? A manufacturer is going to be different to a hotel, is going to be different again to a professional services firm like PwC. I think kind of the low-hanging fruit, the most obvious ones are the amount of electricity that your business is consuming. For us at PwC, it was quite interesting for us to identify that actually our biggest emissions was travel and the travel of our people. And that actually was a huge challenge. I mean, you can imagine us trying to track where all of our people are traveling to, how long that travel is, what class of travel they're doing. So again, it's going to depend on the nature of the industry that you're in. But probably the low-hanging fruit is energy consumption in your operations. Yeah,
that sounds about right. And I guess that also is, for most businesses, scope 1, 2, and 3. There's kind of an element for most businesses that will, there'll be something from each piece of those scopes for each business. Then I guess if that's the data and we know what we're going to capture, how are we going to ensure that we're accurate and reliable with our data?
Oh gosh. So again, another challenge. Another challenge for us. And you know, these are our systems and processes that we had to build from scratch. And it took time for these systems and processes to mature. And we had a lot of rigorous testing to make sure that we were actually capturing the right data and that it was accurate and that it was complete. And many businesses can look at it just like their own financial data, subjecting it maybe to internal audit, having peer review of it, engaging professional services firms like PwC to maybe help them develop those systems and processes and test that they're actually capturing the right data. Because the last thing you want to do is be making decisions on data that's inaccurate or incomplete. And you also do not want to be putting that data into the marketplace because you could lose credibility if you're reporting stuff that's not accurate.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so we're going to move into the next section of the interview, getting started with data. This is kind of the deep dive piece, I guess. Can you share some first steps with me, with our viewers, on what businesses can do to get started with their sustainability data?
I would say, Caroline, start with the thought process of keeping it simple. Okay.
Sounds like a good idea.
There's definitely going to be low-hanging fruit. So you got to identify, what are your biggest contributors, be it energy, waste, water. But go with the low-hanging fruit and just start simple, because you'll find that if you take a couple of the big things off the list, you're already making a really great start into the process.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I guess next question to that would be, given the constraints that I think we have in the Caribbean, smaller businesses, how can businesses integrate their ESG data collection, environment data collection with their existing operations, what they already have at hand?
Well, it shouldn't be that difficult. You got to make sure that you're allocating the right amount of resources to it. We identified that ourselves. I think you got to make sure that there is capacity in your current system to take this on. But finance functions generally, or operations teams, are generally the right places to start. And they already have a good idea of the information that's out there. You know, that there's data on your electricity bills, there's data on your water bills, and it's just actually pulling that data together in a readable form. And, you know, we started with Excel spreadsheets, but over time we've been able to build our reporting out and get into other tools such as Power BI and data analytics to really help us do a deeper dive into our data.
That's true. And I think, you know, we are fortunate we have a digital team. So we have some great resource to be able to help us to do that. And then we have our wider network where we have some of the tools as well. I think I just wanted to add that not to underestimate the resource that you will need to do it. It's not to scare businesses, and, you know, it's part of the first step to look at the resource that you already have, but don't underestimate that you will need that resource and the capabilities and the upskilling to really kind of go the whole length of your net zero journey.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to encourage people, I was just tell them just to start.
Yeah,
and to pick the biggest items and start going after them, and you'll find that you'll quickly start picking up pace. Your systems and your processes will develop and mature, and you'll be well on your journey. And
so that's all well and good. And I'm sure, you know, that is the case for many, but obviously there's still challenges. There's going to be challenges. Can you talk to me a little bit about what those challenges might be for the small, medium kind of businesses around data collection, what some of those key challenges can be? And they're probably not too dissimilar from what we've had ourselves. Yeah, as I said, you have to get started. And I think many businesses may say, well, why is this a priority? But if you're really interested in it and you want to make a difference, you have to prioritize it, because lots of small businesses have many priorities. So it's just elevating this up the chain and making sure that you want to go after it. Maybe put in a bit of a governance process around it and set some strategic goals to try and make a difference and achieve a difference. I think the governance piece is certainly key. I know, you know, from our perspective, we've kind of top-down approach. Mm-hmm. You know, with the work that I do, I couldn't do that without your input and, you know, you being invested in it, as well as Fraser as our CEO. So that's really important to have that kind of governance piece. Yeah, and the tone at the top that this is one of our strategic objectives, that this is something that PwC wants to make a difference in. And I feel like that's a little bit what we could be missing with some of the businesses in the Caribbean. I think a lot of CEOs and leadership, C-suite, know that it's important, but maybe aren't as invested, or there's a million competing priorities, of course. Correct. And there will be ways out there that businesses within the same industry can maybe pool together and share information and share resources to try and make a difference. Because, you know, it's always better that if you can get a blueprint off of somebody else. And you would like to think that businesses wouldn't mind sharing this information, because it is all for a greater common good and not necessarily giving away business objectives, or, you know. Collaboration is key. Collaboration is key. So as we move into the final section, Gerry, which is practical insights and challenges, highly important to the audience, can you share what common challenges businesses will have when collecting their ESG environment data? Yeah, sure. And we hear this from business leaders all the time, including our global annual survey. And it's going to come down to a couple areas. One is, you know, the availability of resources to capture the data, the quality of the data going in, as well as then the accuracy of the data and the completeness of the data that you've captured. So those are kind of the three key areas that I think concerns people, business leaders. And so you mentioned, obviously, the quality of data. How are businesses going to address the quality of their data, as well as data gaps? How are they going to address all the inconsistencies that we have found? You know, we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and ours has been an evolution. Yeah, I think it will become obvious as you get into it. And I've already said before, you know, I think the key is to get started.
And then you'll figure out where your gaps are, and you'll figure out how to plug them, because you are building new systems and processes, and people need to understand that you're trying to do something that businesses have just never really captured before.
Okay. Finally, what advice would you give to businesses just starting their sustainability journey? What's the kind of key things?
I would say keep it simple. Start with a clear plan. Try to understand, what are your objectives as part of this, what are you trying to achieve, and just start building on it. I said, just jump into it and start getting going, and you'll see that your systems and your processes will build out. You'll identify where your data gaps are, and you will naturally just start plugging them, because most likely your business was never trying to capture this data before. So you just have to get started, Caroline.
And can I add to that, I guess, I've actually found very useful the partnerships that we have, and the membership bodies here in the Caribbean. Obviously, we have the Chamber, and a lot of the organisations. I think some businesses forget how much availability there is of data in terms of knowledge, and like you had said, alluded to earlier, there's other businesses that have probably done it to get the blueprint. I think, having the support of different businesses that have done the same, as well as some of the organisations that we have across the Caribbean, I don't think you actually have to start from scratch. There's knowledge and papers and things out there.
Yeah, absolutely, completely. You may be starting now, but there are plenty of people in front of you and are working through it. So seek advice and talk to businesses in your industry, talk to people like PwC, and we can happily help people get off on the right foot.
I would like you to leave us with a final thought. Why now? Why should we start?
I think the information is out there. Climate change is real. It is impacting our communities. It's impacting the planet. You can see it with the hurricanes. Maybe we haven't had as many hurricanes as people were predicting this year, but there's no doubt that the sea temperatures are hotter. Everyone is saying that. They're feeling that. And the hurricanes, whilst maybe less in number, were escalating to very, very strong storms extremely quickly. We saw it with Hurricane Beryl, devastating the Grenadine Islands, and then going into Jamaica, and then Helene, which had a very significant impact on the US mainland, specifically in the Carolinas. So that's the reason why it's the right thing to do. And actually, Caroline, it's more than just the right thing to do. So we are seeing, in Europe and certain parts of North America, growing regulation with regards to sustainability and emissions. And whilst it's not in the Caribbean yet, we do expect it maybe to get to certain parts of the Caribbean. And also, we have to recognize we're part of a global network for many businesses here. And supply chain agreements may impact your need to be capturing this data and reporting it, and reporting it to other people outside of the Caribbean. So it's really important that businesses get on board with this, and as I said, start the journey. That was really interesting, Gerry. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh gosh, it was a pleasure, Caroline. And I really hope that businesses do pick up the mantle and really try to move forward with this, because we do definitely at PwC believe it's very, very important for many reasons. Thank you. Thanks, Caroline.